Hello there, everybody. Happy Sunday. Chief Meteorologist Andrea Michaels here with the latest on Cloud43 stream on this Sunday, December 7th. We're talking more cold, of course, heading into the new week, so we'll be taking our time and breaking that down and allowing for the opportunity to ask some questions. December, it's definitely coming cold as expected, and, well, we're not really going to be letting off the brakes on that cold just yet. Whoa. Pardon me there. I've been doing so much better, but apparently it waited until now. Apparently it waited until now to act up again. But anyway, we'll talk about the cold but mostly quiet week coming our way, despite that. So, bundle up's going to be the main message more than anything else. Already have some people on here already. Hello, Adam. Hello, Ruby. Hello, B. Dean. Hello, Val. All jumping on here to talk a little bit about the weather. So with that said, as I continue to try to recover from a little bit of an interesting hacking fit that tried to happen not too long ago, we'll start with a look at our weather headlines. And Monday is looking frigid again with breezy conditions too. We're not talking anything too breezy. I don't think wind gusts are really going to get higher than 15 to 20 miles an hour. So at least, those holiday inflatables aren't going to end up in a neighbor's yard out of this. But it is going to be enough, especially during the morning, to make wind chills feel like they're in the teens at times, especially in our coldest spots. So bundle up. That's going to be that's definitely going to be the name of the game here. Woo! All right. I think I've fully recovered here for the time being. Fingers crossed that got this the rest of the 40-ish minutes that I have this slotted for any given week. So, midweek, all's going to be quiet until then. That's when our next significant, I don't want to say significant, I feel like that's way too strong of a word for it, but our next wave of note, how about that, is going to cross through, perhaps bringing a few rain, snow showers, but this isn't going to be a big deal. But as far as the work week goes, this is probably the most impressive day for things to fall out of the sky. And we're not even talking anything crazy as far as that goes. The end of the week, though, we're just going to keep this persistent cold pattern that's been in place, streaming cold air from the northwest through the Arctic. Pretty much the cold train coming down our way from way up high in the Arctic Circle, Canada, and ultimately here. So we're going to keep that going. You know what, B. Dean? You're commenting saying nasal spray and menthols takes care of that right away. I have to say, today I did forget my nasal spray. I have one that I use daily just to help. I don't have allergies, but it kind of just helps me in general, and it's been recommended for me without getting too into it. And I wonder if just forgetting it today is kind of like, as soon as I realized I forgot it, it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I basically just said, I've made it this far without it. I always have a backup at work, though, just in case, so maybe I'll give myself a couple of spritzes when I'm done with this. But anyway, my apologies for that. Hopefully, it'll be smooth sailing from this point onward. Not to jinx it, but yes, we've got a lot of cold in this forecast. That's for sure. You said the Erie season needs to kick up. Is it really not snowing that much up there yet? I'm just curious. I don't specifically, follow Erie weather too much. But it seems like they've gotten at least an okay start to their lake effect from what I can tell, but maybe my first instincts on that are wrong compared to folks who normally obviously live there and especially forecast there. They would know better than me. My specialty, of course, here in South Central PA, where I've been for almost, 13 years now at this point? Maybe 14? What's 2013? 2025? Okay, 12. 12 years, right? Yeah, 12. Oh, no, tomorrow. No, next year's 26. Yeah, 13. I was right the first time. All right, there you go. Sometimes you just got to go with the first instincts, guys. That's more proof of that. So with that said, I'll just give it right to you guys straight here. This is the weather impact 7-day forecast, breezy conditions for your Monday. A little bit more sun. Actually, I meant to change that to a mostly cloudy icon. I can do that right now. Whoopsies. Little bit of sun, but not enough for that partly cloudy icon. I was feeling the mostly cloudy icon. Now that I see that. Sometimes an oopsie or two gets by me. Far from perfect, and I don't pretend to be for sure. All right, I just punched that in, so that should happen. And just for the proof here, see, I did say MC, mostly cloudy. So that was what I originally thought until I saw that anyway. Anyways, hi Jill. Welcome to the stream. Oh, I'm glad somebody likes the cold weather. For me, I like the cold weather if we have some snow to show for it, which seems to be the big question for December. Will we be able to capitalize on all this cold? This week's looking like another one of those probably not weeks. We had some opportunity, obviously, last Tuesday. That brought a few inches of snow to many spots, but if you were in parts of Adams and much of York and Lancaster counties where you got the bulk of the mixing, you obviously have way less to show for it. Maybe a tenth or a half of an inch or a whole big nothing. And some maybe a little more gracious, an inch, inch and a half to 2 inches, but you really had to be north of the turnpike in particular, especially south and east of Harrisburg. You had to be north of the turnpike to really get any good amount of snow. But that mixing, man, it was a weak system, a lot not going for it to get any higher amounts out of it. But, you know, big early snows in December historically usually don't happen, so kind of is what it is. But hey, we've got other opportunity and whatnot for sure. And there still is not just the rest of December, but the whole rest of winter still. In fact, we haven't officially, although we are in meteorological winter, which is December, January, February, because it just keeps the records clean, of course, because as you know, astronomical spring, summer, winter, fall, the day can change and it can vary. So meteorological winter, spring, summer, keeping it by month instead of by date as far as the astronomical transition of seasons goes, it actually just keeps the records very clean here. Anyways, whew, let's see. Next Saturday, going to be record lows. Hey, meanwhile, in Pennsylvania. I think that might depend on where in Pennsylvania. Here in South Central Pennsylvania, I'm not entirely convinced yet. I'm a little worried it can be a little too breezy, especially in the morning. That could make it difficult. Whenever you have winds, that usually doesn't allow temperatures to drop as low as they otherwise would. Yeah, CBD, it's meanwhile in Pennsylvania. Oh my goodness, I feel so, I know, I'm like, whoo. Ooh, I got a big name join me on the stream tonight. Like, this is pretty amazing, for sure. Ooh, hold on. Ooh, I'm getting so nervous now all of a sudden. But yes, anyways, I think it's possible to be cold. I don't know about record cold. We came close to it in some spots Friday morning here, but ultimately clouds just came in too quickly. The cloud shield just reached too far north, and I think that really, I mean, we were forecasting close to the record, but we never thought the record would actually get broken, but it still did overperform even beyond those expectations. I'm just refreshing myself a little on Saturday here. Yeah, I'm not seeing Saturday anymore. Yeah, Saturday is not looking like a record cold, actually. I thought you might have been, I think Sunday morning is the morning you might have been thinking of, but even that wouldn't be a record cold, but very frigid morning, certainly possible. But I did come up with our lows on Saturday. Not too much from what I recall. I don't remember what was there before. It might have just been a degree or two. But yes. For sure. We are, BD, the meteorological seasons are the only ones that matter. Hey, though, it is fun to, you know, say, hey, spring's officially here, summer's here, and whatnot. And then fall. Fall's my favorite. I do like winter, don't get me wrong. I like winter forecasting. As far as my favorite weather to actually enjoy, it is definitely fall weather. But anyways, I digress so much here. I gotta get this train back on the tracks. But yes, I don't think we're looking at anything record-breaking coming up anytime soon. And yes, Irving, you did note that Tuesday's lows here, and I'll point this out for folks watching. Possibility of teens once again. I didn't look at the record. I'm actually going to do that right now just because it makes me curious. That wasn't something that crossed my mind today, but admittedly, probably should have. What's Tuesday's date? If today is the 7th, Tuesday would be the 9th. So, let's get a quick little look here at what Tuesday morning's record low is. And let's see. Oop, and I clicked on the wrong thing. Stand by. Let's try that again. So, after I do it right, we've got record lowest. Oh, yeah, that is not even a question. It is a hard no, because the record low for Tuesday morning is 7 degrees, set back in 1989. So, we're not even thinking of single digits Tuesday morning, and I would say that has zero chance of happening. In fact, I debated if we needed to bump that low up Tuesday morning by a degree or two, just because it looks like we might have a little more high clouds than the initial indications on the modeling a couple days ago. I worked Friday, I was off Saturday, and now I'm back in tonight. And from what I recall, I was a little concerned about high clouds, and that really hasn't gone away. In fact, it does seem like we'll get a decent amount of clouds. So it's possible some spots end up closer to 20 with that in mind, too. But either way, I mean, it's frigid. It's below average cold, which has been the story for this month so far, and it is going to continue, I think, at least through the middle of the month here. We might try to get some milder surges, but yeah, it's hard to say. If it's really going to stick until closer to the end of the month. Overall, as a whole, for folks who did see our winter outlook, we did think December we get a cold and active start. So cold, not cold all the way through. You know, you get those variations like you normally would, with temperatures in the 30s, 40s, but we do think when you averaged it all out throughout the month, at the end of the month, December would be noticeably below average, and by a good amount. Cold Decembers, when we picked our analog years or our similar years for when we were doing our winter weather forecast, there were a few points that stuck out, and a cold December was one of them. Average snowfall, though, so there was one year where December overperformed, but that year also, it was like December showed up and the rest of the season decided not to after that. So even though it looked like it was starting off really nice, by the end of the season, it was still, believe it or not, below average snowfall. After very little to no snowfall in both January and February. I forget what March did in that year in particular. March snow is another thing we might have to keep an eye out for. It wasn't every year, but there's a chance on it. Ruby, you say White Christmas coming our way. It is because we have the cold this year in December, a higher chance for that reason. It's a little too early still to say with much certainty, but if the pattern starts to change, so if we start to kind of pull off on the brakes a little bit toward the end of the month, I think that's going to help our storm track out a little bit and get it just a little more north. The one thing I was afraid of when we looked at our similar December years for our winter weather outlook, I remember, and I actually made a post about this earlier today to talk about the persistent cold. One of my biggest fears, so what we did was we plotted those years and we do what's called composites, without getting into too much detail and nitty gritty that, you know, most of you probably wouldn't understand, so I don't want to, you know, have that be all over your head and be like, what is this girl talking about here? But the gist of it is we give a plot to how the United States looked those years combined. We took all of those years to see where was a similar pattern, you know, what did the pattern look like, what did temperatures look like, and although they did indicate cold December, looking at what could be the overall storm track, I thought to myself, and actually I said it out loud with the team while we were looking at it, I said, I don't know if we'll have too much December snow to show for all that cold, though. With that said, though, all of our analog years had average snowfall, which is roughly 4 inches, give or take, depending where you live in our area. Obviously, if you live in Mifflin County, it's going to be more than 4 inches. It's 4.4, I believe, or 4.3 for Harrisburg International Airport exactly, and then it would obviously be a little lower in, say, Lancaster or York counties, where traditionally southeast you get the least amount, and then as you work your way northwest, you get the most. So, you know, we've got the cold on our side, and I think we can increase our chances a little in the next 2 weeks if we can kind of pull the brakes a little on that cold. So technically for a white Christmas, and I know this isn't what most people think a white Christmas is in their mind. I know they think of it just snowing Christmas Day, it's all white, you know, but technically according to meteorological standards, you just need an inch of snow depth on Christmas morning at 7 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day for it to technically count as a white Christmas. So in theory, it could snow 3 inches on, say, the 23rd, and then just 2 inches of it melts. And then there's still an inch left over Christmas morning, and then it's still white, and that's technically a white Christmas. So when we say white Christmas, that's what we go by. But I do understand that, sorry, new haircut, new hairstyle, trying to keep it in place. But it might not be what, you know, people, after watching, you know, all the movies their entire lives and everything, it might not actually be what we technically envision here, of course. The meteorology world, just like we do meteorological winter, summer, spring, and fall, we've got our own little version of a white Christmas too. But that's what it is for folks who want to know. Overall, this is going to be a cold week ahead. We'll have some variation. We'll actually make it to 40 in some spots this week, Wednesday in particular, but overall, we just keep the theme here with temperatures cooler than average, and on average, it's going to be anywhere from about 5 to 15 degrees or so. Some spots, some days might be a little bit lower or higher with that number because we're a little bit lower. But yes. Yeah. BD, you say you almost expect overall to roach out after Christmas and then get destroyed with snow from late January into early April. Yeah, I mean, with the lake effect, that's for sure. In 2024, you were still shooting snow packages near Pittsburgh in early May. Miserable. Oh man. Yeah, that's just a little too long for me as far as cold and snow goes. But they've got those higher elevation mountains there. So the terrain, yeah, in the springtime, I can absolutely see how it gets complicated. Where you probably have valley snow versus, you know, above maybe 2,000 feet elevation or something like that, then it's snowing. I do not envy those forecasts. Those are tricky forecasts, and especially out west, say the Intermountain West, the Sierra Nevada mountains of California. Oh gosh, they've got that. Like that's a typical day for them out there. Those meteorologists, they work hard for their money out there with how complicated their forecasts are with that sort of terrain. It's pretty incredible. Yeah, Victor, you know, it always snows beginning of January with the farm show coming up. Yeah, way more than not, but let's be real here. That's also because the farm show's in January. In January, yes. And 10 days long, too. It's like, or maybe it's 9 days, but still. You have to hope you don't get a flake in 9 days in January. That's a pretty tall order. So yes, usually one of the days you can at least expect a little bit of white to some degree. So there's always that. But there is still plenty of winter to go here. So I know, you know, a lot of snow lovers might be disappointed to have all of this cold, but to see a forecast this week that, you know, looks like this. A few rain snow showers Wednesday, breezy, a few flurries Thursday, and then Friday, just cold. Friday, I think the system we were watching for Friday, I think that's backing up into Saturday. But like I said, I have a feeling if anything impressive happens, the track with this one is just not going to be where we need it to get anything more than a few snow showers out of it. So I have that in there for Saturday morning, but I wouldn't get my hopes up with that. Um, there are a couple factors that I look at here, but like I said, when I saw, where the track might be, I wondered if we would have the snow to show for it. And this is one of the reasons why. And ultimately, just in general, just for a quick recap, with our winter weather forecast, we thought we'd get a little more snow than last year, but we'd still be below average to near average. So we didn't think this would be that much snowier of a year, but we think it would be snowier, and we do think March, because March could show up, we'd end up with just a little bit more in general too. So we'll see. I mean, obviously there's still a lot of the season left to go, a lot of months to go, but every season's different and poses its own challenges, and we'll have to see what that's going to end up being, especially once the La Nina fades, which it looks like it's still on tap to do sometime. I mean, it could happen. I think it could happen as early as by mid-January, or I mean, it looks like it could exit a little earlier, on the earlier side, but definitely February at the latest, from what I can tell at this point. Obviously, it's not an instant switch that happens. There's a little bit of atmospheric muscle memory to it before other patterns, that resurface or have their hands in the pot a little bit more when there is no El Nino or La Nina present, can finally get a grip on it. But that should be enough for us to have an active second half of February to early first half of March. So that's why we kind of are seeing what's going to happen, and that's also something that was very notable in our analog years. Darn it, Jonathan, late again. I know, 8 o'clock, set an alarm. Gosh. I'm just kidding. Don't worry, you missed a couple of crazy hacking cough fits. To recap here, Jonathan, even though I had been fine all day up until that point, cheers, because, hooray for things like that happening. I'll blame the dry air. I don't know. Hey, Tom, is there going to be any type of precipitation Monday? Built-in barometers, hockey player hips are buzzing. No, Monday you're not. Monday's just going to be breezy. I think Tuesday a few flurries. Maybe you're feeling it right. Are you feeling it right now? Because if you're feeling it right now, I'll bet anything that drop in pressure that you're feeling, we've got a weak cold front that's crossing through. It's just bringing a few snow showers, nothing, nothing to write home about here. So I wonder if that's why. You might just be feeling that quiet drop in pressure, not quiet, but that brief little dip in pressure while the front moves through. But yes. Adam, Lakeland is in the 70s. Your dad is in Florida. Just rub it in, man. Rub it in. Rubbing it in. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. I try to. So, all right, we'll talk a little bit more here. Now, there was an air quality alert issued yesterday for today. And it was interesting. There were I had quite a few questions about this, so I thought it would be worth addressing and talking about. Now, air quality alerts don't always come from wildfire smoke from Canada. I know, especially in recent years, they've definitely been a good source of them, and certainly have prompted a fair amount of them. But when you think about it, we've had several days in a row of just cold, cloudy conditions, light to calm winds, and no matter what, with no actual systems, really passing through for a few days, believe it or not, you can actually build up pollutants in those kinds of conditions. Now, tonight's cold front that's passing through right now, that's going to change it, so that's why we won't have an air quality alert tomorrow. So that'll be the push to kind of shift air masses and get us out of the rut, so to speak. But yeah, we had very stagnant, just frigid air that moved in Friday, Saturday. It allowed everything to build up, and that was kind of that. So I thought that would be worth, just kind of explaining for folks who maybe, think of the wildfire smoke or maybe just didn't really know. I saw a couple crazy cuckoo for Cocoa Puff comments about it, and I was like, bro, what? But that's really all there was going on for it. And it was a code orange, which was one of the lower end alerts. Code orange, it doesn't affect most of the population. It's what the EPA, what they call, or DEP, excuse me, they call sensitive groups, and that's just those with pre-existing conditions, notably a pre-existing lung condition like asthma, a heart condition like heart disease, or the youth or the elderly. Folks who might be a little more vulnerable just in any type of health situations, that's kind of the people affected. So someone like me, who fortunately is about as, aside from all the colds I can't seem to avoid recently, normally a pretty healthy person. So it's really just for those folks. It's nothing to get all up in arms and worry about. I had a couple people like, oh, I posted an alert. How dare I? Oh, the sky is falling. And I'm like, bro, what is wrong with you? I don't understand why people comment if they're going to be like that. I truly don't. But I don't know. It's social media. That's what we deal with nowadays. It is what it is. I just ignore them mostly. Or tell them they're ridiculous, because that's exactly what that was. I could try snapping fingers, Todd. The problem is that my whole life, I don't know why, I can't do it. No matter how hard I try. That basic life skill. Oh, did I actually do it? That basic life skill just never caught on, no matter how hard I tried. Also can't whistle. Tried. Couldn't do that either. The Facebook comments on AQI alerts make your head hurt. You see what they're doing. Oh my gosh, is it like contrail poisoning comments? Oh my goodness. Or chemtrails, that's what they call them. Chemtrails. Oh man. I know there are a lot of annoying conspiracy theories out there. Maybe it's because I'm a meteorologist, but that would be one that I wish can just go the heck away. Dear Lord, it is just condensation. And you'd have to actually believe that the people, the government poisoning us, they're okay poisoning themselves too. So, I mean, that in itself just defies logic, aside from the actual scientific proof that it's just condensation and then ice crystals up that high, and then it gets blown by the upper level winds, and that's why the ice crystals stretch. It's just basic science, and it's just, I don't even bother arguing them, because I've heard the stories. Luckily, I don't get too many of those nuts. There's one from, actually, I got one a couple, like maybe a week and a half ago or something like that. You just can't argue with them. Like, you truly can't argue with them. And even though I said, okay, goodbye, like, seriously, I'm not arguing this with you, he just kept going. And I was just like, I'm not going to bother. Because, like, these people, it's crazy. They don't want to hear the facts. They are just sucked into something so, I don't get it. But all I know and all I've heard over the years, and it is true, there is just no talking to them, because they don't listen to know the truth. They just listen to want to be right. And that is what it is. It's crazy. Oh, I know, right? People are bored and getting paid for it. Yeah, like, seriously, I don't understand. If you have time to believe a conspiracy theory, you have time to do something way more productive with your life. Like, there are other things, like, I would believe that we're talking with aliens before I believe with that, and I'm not so sure. Fun fact. Okay, we're really derailing the train here, but seriously, I always love, it's like, oh, yes, aliens, always trying to hide from us. But we managed to kidnap a few and the government hides those alien bodies. Maybe it's true, I don't know. But I don't understand why we assume that they just, like they just try to come here and be all sneaky and, like, what, kidnap some of us to like, I don't know. Like, it's just, like, when you think the motive through, it never makes sense to me. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But I'd believe that first before I believe chemtrails. I'll say that much. Anywho. Alright, enough of that. We'll talk some forecast here. Who was it? Oh, shoot. La, 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 la. Scrolling up. Let's see. Tom, that's it. Tom, good old Tom, Lucky Shot. Yeah, see, I think this is what you're feeling more than anything. I think you're feeling the dip in pressure as this cold front's crossing through today. High pressure builds in, so I think your pain will ease off a little bit over the next couple days, at least until the next one, which is going to be set for Wednesday. That's going to bring a few rain snow showers. I would say higher elevations, definitely your best chance for rain showers. I especially think valley areas south and east of Harrisburg, where you definitely get to 40. Yeah, you're probably looking more rain, maybe mixed showers than anything else. But wind chills Monday in the wake of this system will be cold. We'll have temperatures in the 20s. Some spots will reach the low 30s, but I also think our colder spots will be in the 20s. So wind chills, especially in the morning, once that breeze, 15, 20 mile per hour wind gusts, yeah, it's going to briefly feel like it's in the teens at times, and then through the afternoon, low 20s to upper teens for most folks. So make sure to bundle up. It's going to be more of the same. So I'm going to show you guys the upper level pattern here now because, oh yeah, Irving, Area 57, yeah. I forget about what happened. I remember like there was a whole group of people that were all of a sudden just going to storm it, and it's just like, yeah, they were going to break in and they were going to find those hidden alien bodies. I forget what came of that. I just remember laughing about it. That was during COVID time anyway, and oh man, that was a crazy time. Lockdowns and everybody got stir crazy, I think, because of it. Yeah. Anyways, here's our upper level pattern. Sometimes it can be very useful to see what's happening up high in the atmosphere. It's not perfect, but there can be connections. Depending on the setup, sometimes there's stronger connections than others. The takeaway here with all these pretty colors is that these dips, these indicate when a system's crossing through. The bulges indicating what we call a ridge or some sort of high pressure system. Colder colors, obviously colder air, you're going farther north. Blues, cold, reds, yellows, oranges, warmer. In between, you know, your greens and maybe these lighter, well, maybe not lighter yellows, but like in between the green yellows, more milder weather. Maybe not unusually cold for this time of year. Oh, that's right, Jonathan. Like a dozen people actually showed up. I do remember that after like all that talk and all those Facebook groups. I do remember now. Just for nobody to show up. Shows how much they truly believed it in the end, right? It was all fun and games until you actually had to put your money where your mouth is. Anyways, I'm okay pretending they don't exist if they do exist. For now, anyway. Until they actually come, you know, Independence Day lasers ablazing. That's a reference to the movie from back in the day. Cheers. Dating myself a little there, but that's okay. A little bit of a kink here for Monday. There's going to be a wave that goes, again, diving to our south here. This wave's going to be passing through, and they might get some snow in North Carolina, the northern half of the state anyway. Anywhere, you know, southern half is probably just going to get mixing or rain. But yeah, Virginia, parts of Virginia could get a little more snow again. It looks like it should just stay just south of Baltimore. Every time you get these little crinkles here, they usually indicate weak disturbances in the atmosphere. Another one we'll keep an eye on here. That's going to drop down a little bit more and then just kind of skedaddle out of here. But where you see this big bulge or this big dip coming down, that's something a little more organized. Area of low pressure and a cold front. We are going to have this pattern where these systems are just going to shoot down or stay to our north, but still shoot down from the northwest in clipper type fashion. Truly, weak clipper type fashion, but it doesn't look like we're going to capitalize on them. And unfortunately, when we put together our winter, at least December winter composites, that's where the indications were. And I know a lot of people follow the Madden-Julian oscillation, or the MJO. When it's in phase 7, it favors the precipitation in Delmarva and in the Carolinas. We tend to be mostly dry. Maybe our southeastern spots are kind of near the cutoff between something and just dry. And then in phase 8, it's just cold and dry. So with that in mind, keep that in the back of your heads, because we did anticipate or guesstimate it, because you can't really do too much long term. You can't predict like you can La Nina and El Nino, a phase like the MJO. You can only predict out about 2 to 3 weeks of it, but the 3-week period can be kind of rough sometimes, just putting that out there. So we kind of have to, knowing that it cycles from phase 1 to 8 and then starts all over again, we kind of have to guesstimate going into the winter what we think's going to happen with it, and how much time and how quickly we think it can cycle through. And it seems like a good bet for December. Getting it to line up just right though in January. I don't think this January is going to look too much like last January, but I do think there will still be some colder spells, and I think it could be a little stormier at times too. A little more of an active pattern, just to clarify when I say that. A little more active. Doesn't necessarily mean we're getting a big storm out of it. Could present a little more opportunity though. Alright, that guy's gone. Here's the next little crinkle, and I think this one's really not going to be a bother. But then the next one's going to drop down, and that's why I'm keeping an eye on Saturday morning. Enough of a dip, but depending on where the ultimate track lines up and the energy, I wonder if we'll just end up with maybe a slightly more north track than that Friday system that we just had, and maybe just some snow showers. So it is what it is. Oh yeah? Your parents live in Virginia, snow down there, unpredictable, hellscape disaster, despite it happening at least once a year. I bet. And the rest of December, I mean, it's very possible, at least until we ease the brakes off this pattern, the last week and a half of this month, it's very possible they could get another go at a little more snow after this next one. There could be another opportunity trying to show up. Maybe 2 in the next week and a half, 2 weeks to come, before we should start to finally nudge out of this December pattern. Question is going to be when exactly that is, because a lot of the analogs are very locked in for most of December, and there has been a lot of adjusting on the deterministic models, even the ensembles too, in the long range, where they seem to hint at a warm-up but then bring back the cold, and then hint at the warm-up, which tells us we're on the right track with this persistent December cold. So I say this before I click this again intentionally, because although there has been some indication of milder air trying to slip in, milder, the question is it like maybe a few days, like a 2-3 day period, and then we just reset and then another burst of the cold comes in? I'm not so sure if this were to verify instead of shift back to cold like what we've seen. This is next Monday now, by the way. Not tomorrow Monday. Next Monday, like the 17th. That's the 17th, right? Oh, I'm sorry, 15th. I did my math a little off there. The 15th. So middle of the month, and I mean, I'm not entirely convinced just yet. We'll leave it at that. I think a little milder nose is trying to wedge in, and you know, we didn't expect it to be a constant cold. There is going to be some milder weather that tries to slip in, like this weekend or even this Wednesday that's coming up, where obviously this weekend was still on the colder side of average, and Wednesday will be too, but you know, milder, so to speak, but definitely expecting the entire month to come in cold when all is said and done. But with that said, like I said, I think this could be really quick, because it looks like another nudge. It looks like the pattern's setting right back up again. So it's very possible that maybe we slip in a few more milder days after this week, that we slip in a few more milder days towards the middle of the month than we have seen the first 2 weeks. But overall, I think when we do the math, average the highs, the lows, and take the average of that throughout the month, I still think that number for December average temperature will be at least several degrees, at least 3 to 5 degrees below average. I think that's a pretty good bet at this point. Question though, I think average snow. I don't think we're going to have a lot to show for it than average snow because of it. White Christmas, better chance because of the cold. Like I think it was it Ruth? Apologies if I forgot your name, friend. I'm going to double check that now because now I feel bad. I'm checking my comment section. Ruby, sorry, Ruby. I was close. Two letters I was off by. But yeah, so I mean, you got to keep an eye on it regardless. So as far as temperatures go, average for Harrisburg, at least your high temperature is 46 degrees. We'll be below that. Most days we're well below that by at least 5 to 10 degrees. Some days, like Monday, it'll be even lower than that. So bundling up remains the message, but again, mostly on the dry side here. And that's not really a shock to me. Again, people hear more snow, and I don't mean it's going to be a big record-breaking, snow. I just think more snow than we've seen by the end of the winter. The last, 2 or 3 years or so, if I'm remembering right. Maybe it's just, I think it was 3 back-to-back winters that were pretty disappointing. I think this one kind of flips the script a little. We get more cold, I think. Last winter actually was on average colder than average. I believe the average temperature was like 31.3 or something like that, mostly because of January. I think that ended up being like 6 degrees below average roughly. I don't remember the exact number. It might have been 5.8. I might be making that up though, but I know it was significantly lower, and I think that's what really tilted everything to being roughly I think it was like, I want to say it was about 30, maybe it was 31.8. I know I had the numbers written down, and obviously it's 3-4 weeks later, so I can't remember them without referencing them. But it was noticeably cooler this last season, and I think we'll have something fairly similar to that, maybe just a nudge higher, depending on how February looks. February could be pretty volatile with temperatures and with the pattern, particularly the second half of the month. So that'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But yes, as far as precipitation, we're not going to have much to show for it this week. A few rain snow showers. Could you get a spotty coating in some of those higher elevation locations? Sure. Spotty coating, I mean, half an inch is probably pushing it, and by spotty I mean it's not like continuous. It's like a place here, a spot there, you know what I mean. So not a guarantee for most of our area, far from a guarantee for most of the area. And then just maybe a few leftover lake effect flurries for Thursday, mostly by the looks of it, morning in the wake of the system that crosses through Wednesday. So that's something to just keep in mind here. And then, like I said, we'll watch Friday night into mostly, I think, early Saturday morning. But we'll have to keep an eye on that. Now, in here, since we did talk about kind of backing off on the cold a little, I'm showing you the CPC's 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. So this is the temperature outlook for December 15th through the 21st. And probabilities are all set that we are leaning a little below average. So you noticed how some of those warmer colors were trying to work its way in, and not the darker blues that would indicate a high chance of being cooler than average, like right here. We're leaning towards the lower end of those ranges, which tells me, we could get a couple of milder days heading into next week, the following week, I should say. Not the new week coming up this week, like the following week, obviously, with this timing here. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. You'll notice the cold's just not looking like it's going to be as in-depth and as locked in. Now, based on what I told you guys about the MJO phases in 7 and 8, I find it curious that they went drier from Delmarva down to the Carolinas. I find that curious. Now, with that said, if we're kind of taking the pedal off a little bit, then yes, we would be shifting our storm track a little bit more north and potentially too far north. So that's worth keeping an eye on, but I just found it very interesting Especially, you know, knowing the fact that we've got that cold locked in, then the more activity would be down here. So it seems like, yeah, we could be seeing us losing that sweet spot too much. With that said, we'll keep an eye on it though. Question, you have a question, Irving? I might have an answer. I will try to have an answer. BD, a good heavy event that shuts down the state capitol so you can cover it. Oh man. Irving, how many models do I compare? Several. Let me see. On any given day, it's at least 5. Depending on the situation and my curiosity, I may look at ensembles, which are kind of, it's an average of models. If you ran different initial conditions to see what kind of a different result, and then you take the average of that. So I don't know if that kind of counts because it's an ensemble of many into one thing to look at to get an idea. It's especially useful in the long range, and especially what I like to call the super extended, which is beyond our 7-day forecast. Radar wise, I mean, I would say that's pretty similar. I'm assuming you mean like a future cast radar type thing. I mean, the models show all of that. They show where they think the rain and the snow and everything in between will be, and I do look for that on all those same models too. You thought it was 3. I mean, there are 3 main models that a lot of people, I do talk about the European model, the American model, and the Canadian model, especially in the long range, much more. But I do have a lot of high resolution models that I like to use too, that only go out, 48 to 36 hours. And then others that go out, I think it's like 84 hours. So it's like 3.5 days. So I look at those too. And like I said, I also will occasionally look at these ensembles too if there's something particularly interesting that I want to kind of see if I can get a whiff of what might be coming out of it. Jonathan, you say, is the Futurecast maps based on one model, or is that something in-house your team makes? So, our Futurecast model, we have many options. I could show the European model, I could show the GFS model, I can show the NAM model, I can actually show the Canadian model too, with Futurecast. So the graphics system that I have, it's called Max. It's from the weather company. IBM, some sort of thing happened here where IBM bought out what are they called? WSI. That's what they used to be. So they had a model called the RPM, and it was their own in-house model that they made. Now that got replaced by something called the Graph a few years ago. 2-3 years ago now. Yeah, I think it was very terrible the first year, but then they did make some drastic improvements. And we like the Graph. It's pretty good. It's something that you only have access to if you have this particular graphics system that I'm using right now. But you can also have the HRRR on this too. But it actually is pretty good. It does really well with cloud cover, interestingly enough. It can be give or take, though, with precipitation and with thunderstorms and stuff. So I usually will look at, way more than not, I will look at the HRRR2 for comparison. I find, though, when this graph and the Euro are matching up, it's usually a pretty solid combination, usually. Obviously, there's, caveats and subtleties to everything, but it serves us pretty well in those instances. Yes, ensembles are very good for tropical weather. Very sad face this year. Yeah, but we had, how many named storms was it? 13, I believe. We got all the way down to M. Melissa. I mean, that was a pretty active year. It just seemed quiet because only one named storm hit the U.S. It was Chantal, and I believe it weakened to a tropical storm before it even did that in the Carolinas. So it was actually, a quiet year, which is good. And yes, we are a WSI house. Yep. Well, weather company now, but I still sometimes call it WSI when I'm It's just force of habit. You've been doing it for more than 10 years, and then, oh, okay, I'm going to change my name. And you're just like, I'm too old to change now. Come on. It's one of those things. But here's a relook again at our 7-day forecast, in case you missed it at the very beginning, guys, as we kind of go to wrap this up here. I know, unlike last Sunday, where we had actually some snow and some mixing to talk about, it's a little bit of a less exciting forecast with just the cold in place this week. That's why I figured we'd stick to the fact that the cold is the story here and talk a little bit about that extended and what could be in store. And talk about the whole cold, but will we have anything to show for it? And when we finally start to ease off on the pedals, is that when things could get a little more interesting? That's the way it looks like it's going to be. But yeah, I hope that helped, guys, for all the questions. Any other questions, though? Some final ones? Throw them in here while you can, because 'tis the end of the stream. I talked really slow this time because I'm just afraid my throat was going to act up again after those 2 little fits at the very beginning. I was just trying to get through and be okay. But thank you again, everybody, for joining this week. It's always great seeing and hearing your questions. And, you know, sometimes, of course, the train gets derailed. We talk about silly stuff like chemtrails and, you know, Area 57. It's just like, yay. But it's always good. I'm glad you found it useful, Irving. That's good to know. All right. But, you know, quiet week at least. Makes it easier to do stuff for the holidays and whatnot in preparation. I've got a handful of days off this week. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'll probably be too busy Thursday to be very active on social media without getting too much into details there, and much of Friday, but you'll be hearing from me, I'm sure, Tuesday and Wednesday, despite the fact that I'll be at home. Hope everybody has a great night and great week ahead. Take care, everybody. See you next Sunday. I'll be back next Sunday with another on Cloud43 stream.